So for installing a script, if you're working on the network home folder, this is easier because it would follow you around, but you can install it on the student user or whatever. You can go to your name, to library. Now, if you don't see library in here, if you hold down Alt, it will show up, or you can go to Go, hold down Alt, and the library will show up here. And under Preferences, go to Autodesk, Maya, and then you can either navigate to where the version of Maya you're using, or you can use this root level script folder here, and you can install the script here. So this is msc2017. Another one, this is a really old one, it's like from 2000, but I still use it sometimes, called Rivet, and it just sticks a locator onto a surface. And if the surface deforms or anything, the locator stays stuck to the surface. So it's kind of useful for sort of nailing things down to a surface. There are other ways to do it. I actually do it preferentially now with a hair follicle. We'll look at that later. But so once I've installed this, I haven't installed it, I've just placed it in a place where Maya can always find it, msc2017.mel. So if I want to launch this thing, down here, and I'm just going to move Maya up, you've got you can see the mel line here. If you click on it, it says Python. So you can just type in mel commands here. So you could do things like, actually I don't know, but you can type in create node, I think it's psphere, and it will create, no, didn't create it, undo select psphere. Let me find, you can type something like create node, if I have the node editor open. Oh, my node editor hasn't been working lately. Anyway, you can type in create node if you know the name. Like one I've been using lately is called polypoke. And it's an invisible node, but it will create that node for you. But you can also use this to launch scripts. So msc20, so let's say I type in msc20.mel, and it tells me it can't find it. So what you have to do whenever you install a new script is first go to the script editor, and under File, go to Source Script. And just navigate to where you're storing these scripts. So I put mine in that script editor, msc20.mel, and you have to make note of the capitalization. It's msc_D duplicate. So if you open that, now Maya should know where to find it, and I have to have something selected for this to work. Oops.
Does Maya remember that next time you start?
It should remember. Of course, it's not working. msc20.mel. Oh, I don't know if I actually sourced it. Did I source it? Yeah, of course, it's not working when I'm standing here. msc20. Okay, let's try Rivet. Let's see if I can make that work. So I'm going to source this script. Choose Rivet. Okay, so that one worked as soon as I sourced it. Now, if I want to use this over and over again, the best thing to do is to run the script once. So I'm going to select a couple of edges, because I know for this script I need a couple of edges, and type Rivet. And so it's remembered where it was, but if I want to simplify this process now, if I select the command, which is here, Rivet semicolon, and with the shelf open where I want to save this as a button, I can go to File, Save Script to Shelf, and give it a name. I think I already have Rivet up there, so let's call it Rivet 3. And say OK. This is going to ask me whether it's a Mel or a Python script. This one is old, so it's a Mel script. And now it's created a button up here. So now let's see if the button works. If I just select a couple of edges and click Rivet, yeah, and then it adds a locator in that spot. So this script is a good one for a couple of reasons. If, let's say, I just wanted to form this surface and I've got these rivets on it. You can see that the rivets will stay on the surface even if I deform it. So it's useful if you just want a static object that will stick to a surface. Okay. So I don't know why MG duplicate's not working. Let's see why. I made a button for that earlier, but if I just create a polygon cube, and I'll just put a simple animation on it. Just set a key on scale. 10 frames later, I'll change the scale to 2. It should auto key. So I've got a simple animation. If I select this, now because I made a button for MG duplicate before, might be because I sourced it already, it was giving me errors. So this allows me to make numerous copies of this, like an instance, or copy them. So as you probably remember, an instance is an object. You can have many of them, but they all share the same shape node, but they have different transform nodes. So they can appear in different spots, they can be rotated or scaled differently. But if you make a change to one shape by moving its vertices around, they will all change. A copy is something that has its own shape node and transform node. And so here you can do a time offset of -5, so it'll wait 5 seconds before it does the same thing. You can also do a transform offset, so let's say I want this to go up, okay, I already did this, 2.5 units. I could have done the scale here without animating it. And just apply and close. So you can just automate that process, yeah.
Just wondering if it's the same thing with duplicating materials. If you, the difference between a pasted material, just Control C.
So duplicating a shader?
Yeah.
Do you mean to have? No. If you duplicate a shader, so for example, if let's say I put a Mila material on this, or whatever, and let me just add something to it so we can see. So in the color, let's say I just want to put a checkerboard. So then I've got something like this. So if I want to duplicate this material, so what's the situation? You have the same material you want to change slightly and apply to different things, or?
Right, and you can do it like 2 ways. Like you can just like click on the thing and just copy paste,
Mm-hmm.
and then it says pasted, blah blah blah. Or you can do it the proper way, and I just don't know what the difference is.
Well, the difference is that when you copy and paste, it goes out of Maya into the operating system.
Oh.
If you do duplicate, it stays in Maya, and it gives you more options. So if we go to Edit. So in the hypershade itself, not in Edit up here, but Edit in the hypershade, and go to Duplicate. So you can choose shading network or without the network, So this would be like an instance, so with connections to network. So it would be a new Mila node, but connections to that same checkerboard. If I duplicate the shading network, it's going to make a new checkerboard too. And then without network, it's just going to make a copy of that one node, the Mila material.
Okay, sorry, it's like
No, that's it. And while we're on the subject, because this does come up, and I didn't plan on doing this, so I'll probably get it all wrong. But let's say you had a material where, I'm going to break the connection on color here, where you wanted the same material applied to a number of different things with only some slight modification, like a slightly different color. You can do that with a node. So let's say I've got, well, these are instances, so I'm just going to create a couple of spheres here. So this is polysphere 1, this is polysphere 2. And there is a node in Maya called a triple switch. So if I just hit tab here in the hypershade, I can start typing triple shading switch. And so what this is going to do, I'm going to plug this, I haven't done this for a long time, so let's see. I'm going to plug this into my color node, or sorry, my color attribute. And then I'm going to select a couple of objects here. So I'm going to have to copy this tab, select a couple of items. So I'll add this surface. Oh. Right. It's added the surfaces to which I've already applied this field, or this material. So I'm just going to delete this stuff. I'm going to apply this shader to these two things. Now if I go back into my triple switch, to make a new one. So again, just going to middle mouse drag it over onto the color attribute here. Add surfaces. It recognizes what surfaces are already applied, have this material applied to it. And then you got the in shape and the in triple. So this is a different thing you can apply to each one. And this is the default color. So if I change this to red, and these should both render as red. If I go to mental ray, that's interesting. We'll try with the blend. Nothing wants to work. Okay. So let's try something else. Let's map a ramp to one part of this triple switch. So I'm going to map the out color to one of the inputs. So in triple. So now that ramp color is mapped to the polysphere, and if I create checker, so the out color to the triple switch to input 1, triple, so now the checker is mapped to that one. And so we should see the different ones being applied. So I think it didn't work because I had those set up as shapes, but it wasn't reading the default color. So it's called a triple switch because it allows you to map a triple switch item. So color is a triple switch because it's RGB. Could be for something like an alpha gain, which is just black to white. That would be a single switch, that sort of stuff. Another thing that I've shown to a couple of people, another useful node when you're making shaders, is something called the blend colors node. So if I say tab again, blend colors. So for example, let me just break the connection here. In this blend, I've got a color node that is right now mid-gray. And if I want to animate this from one color to another, I can do that. I can choose, this red. I can set a key, and then over time, I can change this to a different color and set another key. But the only problem with this is the way that it changes colors. It's going to move over the color wheel, and it might go through a totally desaturated zone. It might not be exactly what you're after. So a different thing to use is this blend colors node. So let me just break the connection here on the colors attribute. So I'll just drag this blend colors node over here. And it just works in a different way. It's got two color fields from red to blue, and then you can animate this blender. And so if you look up here, the blend, it's not showing up here now, of course, as soon as I do that. So you can see the color field changing, and it's going to be a blend of these two colors rather than moving across the color wheel. But you can use this for anything from going from 0 to 1. If you just use black and white, you can jump from one to the other. You can use it as a switch. Anything like that. Okay, so does that help?
And you just shove that into the color attribute?
Or whatever, whatever you want to put it in. Let's say I have, could be anything. You can just attach it to the diffuse node. I can just drag it over. So it's middle mouse drag. If it doesn't match, because diffuse it's looking for just a single channel, it's going to ask you to hook up something like output R to wherever diffuse is. So if you get this when you try and link something up and the connection editor pops up, it usually means you're trying to link one type of attribute that has maybe only one channel, like alpha, to another type of attribute that has 3 channels, like RGB. And so then you can just try and make a connection using one of those channels.
That helps a lot, thank you.
Okay. We're going to look at another one when we do the end-cloth page turning, when we want one picture on one side of the cloth and another picture on the other side. We're going to use something called a conditional node to do that. So we'll look at a few more shading things too. So if we just pop back to the idea of plugins and shaders, and scripts. So installing scripts is as easy as putting it into your scripts folder, sourcing it, and then running it, and then usually you want to save a button so it's easy to access. But there are also plugins, which are sort of more robust feature sets that you can install. And one of the most useful ones, and I hadn't thought about this for a while, but again, I was thinking about the motion graphics, is one called Soup. This guy named Peter Shipkoff created. And it's distributed for free for quite a long time. So let me just open up another scene. Hexagon procedural grid. So I'm not going to go through the steps of creating this because it's very complicated. So that's one thing something like Cinema 4D definitely has over Maya. It's more welcoming to the new user. But you can get the same sort of effects if you find the right script to do it or if you learn how to write your own script. So here's Soup is a procedural animation tool set. So, and it gives you some things that you can use, like a locator like this, that you can move over an object and make these instances happen and grow or shrink over space. So this could work well for what you're trying to do. And similar to the MoGraph, where you just had that plane modifier that you could push over and have them grow over time. So you can do something similar, scaling this up to grow a grid of these things. But it is a complicated setup. And what Soup does, it's a plugin that gives you a whole bunch of new nodes that this guy created to do all sorts of different things. And so, for example, this is the core of this one is one called Array to Dynamic Arrays. And it's making an array of objects that's dynamic. Not dynamic in the sense of following physics, but can change over time with some sort of input. There are plenty of really interesting things in here, but it takes a little getting used to. There are some preset ones, and then a connection editor here. So it automatically connects things for you. So if you want to use the Soup plugin, if we just look at the Soup Dev website, it's soupdev.com, soup-dev.com. You can download this for free, and if you download the set, you can follow the instructions about where to install everything. If we go back to our same user name here, I'll get back to that in a sec. So remember, we went to Users, Library, Preferences, Autodesk. And you can install things like icons here. So I've got all the Soup icons in here. You can install your shelves here. So there's my Soup shelf. So you'll get instructions with all these different things. Icons are usually in this weird format XPM rather than bitmaps or JPEGs or PNGs or something. So you can install those there. The tricky part on the Mac is to know where to install the actual bundle. So the plugin on a Mac is called a .bundle file. And the best place to install it is on the shared user folder of the local hard drive. So if we go to this local hard drive and go to Users, instead of going to Mark, I go to Shared. There's an Autodesk folder here, Maya, and then go to the version of Maya, and there's a plugins folder, and you can put the Soup bundle in there. You have to restart Maya for it to work. There's one example of a medical illustrator using this, Hirofumi Seo in Japan. He did this, not the heart model itself,
while the left heart,
but all of these vectors showing the pathway of the blood.
blood strongly pushed
This
out
was
by
all
the
done
left
using
ventricle
the procedural
passes
animation
the
of
aortic
Soup.
valve through the aorta to the whole body and carries oxygen and nutrients throughout.
And if we look at the examples of the type of stuff here, some things that you might not use that much, but if you wanted to use something like Maya's three-dimensional fluids for doing, like a calcium channel instead of particles coming out. You want to do sort of a cloud of smoke. Here's some tools for using this a little bit better, or flames, I guess. There's lots of stuff that might not have total clear application. These are Voronoi textures here for this type of thing. This could be interesting for doing non-photorealistic rendering. But for us, let's see, it improves end particles a little bit. This one's called peak. So if you want to use a fluid simulator, this is how end particles die off. You can see they're really blobby at the edges. You can improve this greatly by having those particles die off and get smaller in a sensible way with fluid. And this was just a script that he wrote to help make that happen. A couple of other, what were we doing? There's one here that I want to show you about. So doing shattering, you can do all this shattering in Maya with bullet physics and things like that, but they have a couple of plugins that makes it more realistic and easier. Oh, it's downloading for some reason. That's weird. There's one here. A lot of these things are useful for visual effects more than necessarily the type of stuff that we were doing. Oh, let's just download it. Let me try and open this in Safari. Oops. So you can see when this guy lands on the floor, the ground reacts to him. This is a difficult thing to do in Maya with the tool sets that are there, but he wrote this set of scripts that allow this to happen. And so for doing the motion graphics, like the growing hexagons and stuff, it's totally worth looking into. Again, it's not straightforward about how to apply these things, but there are a couple of really good websites that show people, or video video examples like this one, the procedural modeling by Federico Casanelli. This is showing nothing really related to what we're doing, but procedural modeling. So you can change something by changing parameters, like this. So it's modeling that will grow as you change the parameters of something. So that's a useful one to watch. This one by this guy Nero Black, it's all in a language I don't understand, on a website that I've never been to before, Yuku. But his stuff is great. And I totally understand what he's doing, because there'll be many words I don't understand, but then he'll say, constraint node, and then oh, a constraint node. Okay, but this is actually a great resource for trying to understand how soup works, too. This is the reality of Maya. Okay, you're going to China, some strange website. Maybe not strange in China, but not known to me. And then one other guy, this guy Jimmy Gunawan.
You need a website.
He doesn't speak throughout his tutorials, but if you follow along slowly and build up to the networks that he does, it actually is really informative. And that's how I figured out how to do the growing hexagon grid like that, just by following that. You can do really quite interesting. So this is one showing how you can use soup to shatter something in a way that works better than the built-in shatter in Maya. Okay. So it's worth looking into CG Talk if you find a script, or not CG Talk. Well, CG Talk is a great resource too. CG Society's forums for figuring stuff out. but Creative Crash for downloading plugins, and example shaders also, even models sometimes, and plugins and scripts. Okay, any questions about that? It's kind of a general topic, but I would really look into Soup if I were you. I've used it for a couple of things. It's so deep and so difficult, but if you find an example of somebody doing what you're doing, and so Adam and I were talking about that hexagon grid, and this guy Jimmy Gunawan made one about making a hexagon grid that grows over time. So you can find something and try and make it applicable to what you're doing. So let's just get started with nCloth a little bit. And the example that I'd like to look at is making a turning page. So we're in Caitlin's animation. Might have something like that. You want to animate a page turning. Now there are different ways you could do something like that. You could rig it with a joint system, and we'll look at a joint system this afternoon for the spine. But sometimes it's easier to use dynamics to get something that looks natural and is easily editable. So it's probably worthwhile just following along with me for this. I'm going to stop.